Hey everyone, ready to finally ditch that translator in your head and just think in English.
It's a game changer.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's a goal I know a lot of us have, but it can feel like impossible.
Yeah.
So we're diving into this podcast episode today that says it has the secrets.
Okay.
And it combines psychology and neuroscience with some real tips.
Oh,
And one of the things we're going to learn today is that our brains process images 60,000 times faster than text.
really?
Yeah. 60,000. Isn't that wild?
That's incredible.
So crazy. So maybe that means visuals are the key to thinking in English.
That is a super interesting fact. And you know what? It actually connects to some really powerful techniques
Okay.
for like rewiring how we think.
Sure.
But before we get there, let's break down why we get stuck in that translation trap in the first
Yeah.
place. You know?
The translation trap. Yeah.
Yeah. So your brain, especially when you're stressed or in a hurry,
Mm-hmm.
it just defaults to what it knows best.
Right.
Its strongest pathways in your native language.
That makes sense. So that's why, like, when I'm trying to order a coffee and my brain is doing these mental gymnastics, like translating every single word, I end up sounding like a robot.
Yeah.
And then I get flustered, which just makes it worse.
Right. Exactly. It's like this vicious cycle. You are so not alone in that.
Okay, good.
It's like, trying to run a marathon in flip-flops.
Oh, okay.
What we need to do is like build a new highway in your brain for English.
So are you saying we need to ditch the textbooks and move to like an English-speaking country for a year?
Well,
I don't think my boss would be very happy about that.
full immersion would be ideal, sure.
Yeah.
Think about how babies learn a language.
Mm-hmm.
They don't open a dictionary. They're
Right.
just surrounded by it all the time.
Right.
And there's actually really interesting research showing that immersion, being immersed in a language, activates similar brain areas in language learners
Oh, wow.
as it does in native speakers.
That's cool.
Yeah, but we can get some of those benefits without, having to buy a plane ticket.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the non-plain ticket version.
It starts with like intentional daily habits,
Yeah.
you know? What if you switched your phone and your social media to English?
Mm.
You'd be surprised how fast your brain starts to pick things up.
I'll admit I've been a little hesitant to do that just because I'm so used to navigating everything in my native language
Sure.
that I worry about like getting lost in menus and stuff.
I totally get that it can feel a little intimidating,
Yeah.
but think of it like a mental workout.
Okay.
You're not going to run a marathon on day one, right?
Right.
Start with like little bursts,
Yeah.
maybe 15 minutes a day on your phone in
Mhm.
English,
Okay.
and then gradually increase it as you get more comfortable.
That makes a lot of sense. Small steps to kind of build up that mental muscle.
Yeah.
But it's got to be more than just passively scrolling, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I spend hours on social media every day, and I don't feel like my brain is becoming this English supercomputer or anything.
You're absolutely right. Passive exposure, it's only part of it.
Yeah.
We got to like activate that thinking in English
Mhm.
muscle more directly.
Oh, okay. How do we do that?
So one technique that stands out is what some language experts call naming your world.
Naming your world.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's so simple, but it's really powerful.
Okay.
So instead of seeing, let's say you see a lamp
Okay.
and you think the word for lamp in your native language,
Mm-hmm.
you immediately think lamp in English.
So I'm cutting out the middleman.
Exactly. The translation.
You got it.
But how do you actually do that? Because it feels so automatic
Mhm.
to use my native language for things I see all the time.
It does. It takes practice.
Okay.
But you can literally start right now.
Okay.
Just look around wherever you are right now.
Okay. And like,
See that chair.
yeah.
Don't translate it, just like chair in English.
Chair.
Yeah, and do that for a few objects. And then, you can try narrating your actions as you move throughout the day. So I should be like walking around muttering to myself in English all day?
Well, you can keep the narration internal.
Okay, that's probably better.
Yeah. It's about building that direct link
Mhm.
between the object and the English word, strengthening those pathways.
Okay.
And speaking of pathways, let's go back to that fact you mentioned earlier.
You mean that whole brain's process images way faster thing?
Yes, exactly. 60,000 times faster.
Yeah.
What if we could use that for learning a language?
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah, so
Don't lay it on me.
we're talking about using visuals to like skip that whole translation part, right?
Right, but I'm still a little fuzzy on how that actually works.
Okay, well, imagine you see a dog.
Okay.
You don't have to think like dog in your native language first. You just instantly recognize it, right?
Yeah.
The image is so powerful, the word is like an afterthought.
Okay, I get that. But how do we apply that to learning new words and actually making sentences?
So instead of those traditional flashcards with just words and their translations,
Okay.
We could use flashcards with like pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So you see a picture of a dog, you instantly think dog in English.
No translation needed.
Exactly. Your brain's visual processing power just takes over.
So I'm like hacking my brain's visual system to learn faster.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that, and I bet this connects to that whole naming your world technique.
Absolutely. It all comes back to building those connections in your brain.
Right.
And the more you practice, the stronger those connections get, and the more you'll just naturally start thinking in English.
This is blowing my mind. It's like serious brain hacking, but what about actually being fluent?
Okay?
I mean, I can picture a dog and think dog all day long, but that doesn't mean I can have a conversation about the philosophy of dog walking or whatever.
That's a great point, and fluency is definitely the next level.
Yeah.
So think about like the difference between someone who's fluent in English and someone who's still learning.
Okay.
The fluent speaker, they just respond instantly. There's a flow to their speech.
And I'm just over here like trying to piece sentences together while everyone's staring at me.
Yeah.
Not exactly the smooth operator I want to be.
And that's where a technique called shadowing can help.
Shadowing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You basically listen to native speakers and you repeat what they're saying almost at the same time,
At the same time.
without pausing to analyze or translate.
So it's like I'm mimicking their rhythm and intonation and training my mouth to make the sounds more naturally.
Exactly. You're kind of skipping your conscious mind and letting your subconscious take over.
Hmm.
And here's the important part. It's not about being perfect.
Oh,
It's about getting comfortable with the flow.
I needed to hear that because I get so hung up on trying to say everything perfectly, and being afraid of making mistakes that I just
That-
freeze up.
I totally understand, but think about it. Even native speakers make mistakes.
Yeah, that's true.
Fluency is about communication.
Right.
It's not about perfect grammar or pronunciation.
Okay.
So record yourself speaking English, even if it feels awkward at first, and you'll be amazed how much progress you make just by practicing regularly.
Okay, that's actually really encouraging, like giving myself permission to mess up and sound silly and just let the words flow.
Exactly.
That kind of reminds me of something else. We've been talking about all these kind of advanced techniques, but what if I'm just starting out?
Yeah.
Do I need to jump into complex sentences and debates right away?
Not at all. Just like with any skill, we start simple, and we build up to more complex things.
Okay.
Think about basic phrases like, I am happy, I want to eat.
Okay.
Where's the bathroom?
Okay, those are phrases I can get behind, especially that last one.
Hmm.
But seriously, it's a relief to know that I don't have to like compose Shakespeare in my head right from the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a good way to practice those simple thoughts is by writing in a journal in English every day.
Okay.
Just jot down whatever comes to mind, even if it's just a couple sentences.
So it's like a low pressure way to get those English thoughts flowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's like instead of trying to build a skyscraper, I'm laying the foundation brick by brick. Which actually makes me think of something else the podcast mentioned, that whole idea of like inner conversations.
Yeah.
Is that like next level stuff?
It might sound advanced, but it's pretty easy to do.
Okay.
So imagine instead of asking yourself like, should I take an umbrella
Mm-hmm.
in your native language, you ask it in English.
Whoa, so I'm like talking to myself in English in my head. That's a little trippy. Does that actually work?
It's a really powerful way to make your brain use those English pathways even when you're not speaking out loud.
Okay.
It's like a mental workout for your English.
I gotta be honest with you, I already have a hard time making decisions in my own language. How am I supposed to make it even harder by doing it in English?
You don't have to overthink it, just start small.
Okay.
Set a reminder on your phone to think in English for just 5 minutes
Yeah.
every day.
Okay.
Maybe while you're getting ready in the morning or while you're standing in line at the store.
Okay.
Just notice the words you're using and try to gently shift them to English.
Okay, that feels doable. It's like instead of forcing myself to think in full sentences, I'm just noticing those little bits of language that pop up and seeing if I can switch them to English.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable with those little inner conversations, you'll start to see a change in how you think.
Oh, cool.
You'll be surprised how many of your everyday thoughts just naturally start flowing in English.
I'm actually starting to believe this is possible.
Yeah.
It feels like we've covered so much already, but
Yeah.
before we get too excited, there's one more thing I wanted to ask about the podcast. Talked about learning phrases instead of just words.
Right.
Why is that so important?
So think about it this way. When you learn a phrase like go out as one chunk,
Mm-hmm.
you're basically creating an automatic response in your brain.
Okay.
It's way smoother and faster than trying to put together go and out separately.
So it's like I'm building these fluency shortcuts in my brain.
You got it. And this goes back to what we talked about before with the flashcards.
Okay.
Instead of single words,
Yeah.
imagine flashcards with like full sentences or common phrases.
So that way I'm learning in context, which feels way more natural.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's about building that foundation,
Yeah.
that you can then build on.
This is making so much sense, but I have to ask, and maybe this is getting a little personal, but when you were learning English, did you ever feel like giving up?
Oh, yeah.
Like, were there ever times when it felt impossible to switch to thinking in a whole new language?
Oh, yeah. To be honest.
Yeah.
There were definitely times when I felt, frustrated, overwhelmed, even a little discouraged.
Yeah.
Learning a new language, especially to the point where you're thinking in it. It's a challenge. It takes time and effort and a lot of persistence.
That's kind of comforting to hear, actually. I mean, you're the expert. You make it sound so effortless.
Oh,
But it's good to know that even you had those moments of doubt.
we all do.
Yeah.
But it kept me going.
What?
Remembering why I was learning English in the first place.
Ooh.
For me, it was about connecting with people from different cultures.
Oh, cool.
Experiencing the world through a new lens, being able to read books in their original language.
Right.
Those goals were so powerful, they kept me motivated, even when things got tough.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having that North Star to guide you even when you feel lost, you know?
Yeah.
So for our listeners who are maybe feeling a little lost right now, who are struggling to see how they'll ever reach that thinking in English goal, what advice would you give them? Where do they even begin?
First, I'd say be kind to yourself.
Okay.
Don't compare your journey to anyone else's.
Right.
Just focus on your own progress, no matter how small it seems.
Yeah.
Celebrate those little victories.
Like if I managed to order a coffee without having a total meltdown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a win.
That's a huge win. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
Try different techniques and figure out what works best for you.
Some people love immersion. Some people love flashcards. Some people need a really structured plan, and others prefer a more go-with-the-flow kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this awesome toolkit, but we have to figure out which tools we like the best.
Exactly. And remember, consistency is key.
Okay.
Even just 15 minutes a day of practice can make a big difference over time.
Yeah.
It's about making English part of your life, integrating it into your routine.
That's where those little hacks we talked about come in, right?
Right.
Like switching your phone to English or narrating your day. Those things don't feel so overwhelming when you break them down
Yeah.
into smaller pieces.
And don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Okay.
Try using English in new situations, even if it feels a bit scary at first.
Right.
The more you push yourself, the more you'll grow.
It's like that saying, life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Right.
Or maybe that should be fluency begins.
I like that. And speaking of fluency, it's important to remember that it's not like a destination, it's a journey.
Yeah.
There's always something new to learn, new things to discover.
Right.
Embrace that process,
So it's not about reaching some point where you suddenly become like the perfect English speaker.
Right.
It's about constantly growing and learning and just enjoying the process.
Exactly. And that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Who knows where it'll take you? You might surprise yourself.
This has been such an awesome deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I have a totally new understanding of what it means to think in English.
Yeah.
It's not just about memorizing words and grammar. It's about changing how your brain works and how you see the world.
Right.
And just opening up this whole new way of thinking and being.
It's pretty cool.
It is, and it's a journey that anyone can go on no matter where they're starting from.
Exactly.
All it takes is some curiosity and courage and persistence.
Beautifully said.
So for all of you listening who are ready to get rid of that mental translator and just think in English, you're not alone. We're all in this together.
We are?
And who knows, maybe someday we'll have this whole conversation in fluent English.
I hope so.
Until then, keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep believing in yourselves.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep those English thoughts flowing.